Let's Talk JMMA with Charlie Jewett from sogo-kaku.com. This is a podcast about the deep end of the Japanese combat sports scene. I'm your host, Shu Hirata from On the Road Management. Now, let's begin. Hey Charlie, how are you?
Hey Shu, how are you? I'm doing well.
This is our 29th podcast. So it's been over a year now, I think.
Very good. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think we can begin talking about this biggest probably fight in the recent history of the Japanese combat sports scene, which is the match 2022 Tenshin versus Takeru. Now, How big is this in Japan?
It's gonna... They really haven't started pushing the marketing behind it yet. But it's got the works to be the biggest fight in a really long time.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it'll be Masato Kid level, but I think it'll still be a very, very big fight.
Well, you don't think this is a Masato Kid level?
It might. It could reach that level. It just depends. I haven't seen them really push the marketing yet.
Okay, but in terms of price-wise, this is definitely bigger than that, you know?
Well, I think it's actually kind of a smart branding move because now it kind of showed with the RIZIN landmark shows. I mean, it's not the same level, but all of the tickets are really expensive. It's like $10,000 a seat, I believe.
Right, but this one is way more. It was like $26,000.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I think it's kind of a brilliant branding move because now people want to be seen in that section. People are going to want, like, if you're rich, if you like Kakutogi, if you like MMA, if you like kickboxing, you're going to want to be seen in that front section because it's kind of like a status symbol. Oh, they paid $40,000 for their ticket or something insane.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the point, almost like how I heard some people say it's worth to pay like $10,000, $20,000 to get a first class ticket on airplane because you meet somebody there. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's going
to be completely filled with celebrities. I can already tell any celebrity that wants to get some like free publicity or just is involved. I mean, you're going to see a bunch of famous people in those front sections.
And on top of a guy like probably if he's still around, the guy like from TDT, you know,
exactly
there, you know. And also at the same time, I have to say that lots of Japanese event, not only the fight event, some of the VIP seats are very, very expensive because almost some portion of that is going to so-called very VIP guest. So when you get a ticket in the mail, it's worth $25,000, $30,000. You feel very, very valuable, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think even Tenshin and Takeru made like comments that it might be too expensive. Like they were kind of like,
yeah, exactly. They say that because I think Japanese athletes, they always
humble,
consider about the youth, like the fans. In terms of the kid fans, like they could never be able to afford. I think the cheapest ticket is like $130 American dollars.
Yeah, I saw a funny tweet where some like Japanese girl that's obviously a giant fan has been saving money ever since this it was being hinted at. And she was like, I thought I'd have enough for VIP, but I'm not even close. So
I did see some people who actually even put photos of a stacked Japanese yen bill, like 3 million yen and stuff like that, says I'm ready to buy.
I think the expensive tickets though is like a brilliant branding move. It makes it seem like it's a big deal.
It is, and also just so you know, most of the event like this, especially the combat sports, the most expensive seats and most cheapest will go fast.
It's the middle ones.
Yeah, but in this case, I think there's a seats for like $500, 50,000 yen, 25,000 yen. Those are the prices that everybody's used to pay.
Right.
So those are the tickets. I think it's going to sell out very fast. And
because my wife and her friends, they were all looking at it, and I think they decided on like the
30,000 yen.
30,000 yen tickets.
Yeah. Now it's drawing, right? So it's not like
it's a lottery.
Right. It's a lottery. So and of course, just to like, I guess for those who's listened to our podcast, who's not too familiar with this, is that Tenshin is supposedly like the big star from the kickboxing promotion called RIZIN, and Takeru is from K1, and they're supposed to only fight on a neutral promotion. And I guess that neutral promotion ended up being a RIZIN, right? Because it's Sakakibara as a promoter. Now,
Right.
I'm very, very interested in a couple of things, which is the first, when they announced this fight, they never announced the rules, or and finally they announced the rules. Now, there's going to be a day of the fight weigh-ins, and I think you have to make 127 the day before, and you have to make 136, I think, pounds, and that's actually saying Tenshin has zero problem making that, because that's just his natural thing, right? But
I think the natural reaction is all of the rules are very pro Tenshin.
Oh yeah, exactly. So it's supposed to be a neutral ground, but from my point of view, Tenshin is also a star from RIZIN, right?
Right.
I mean, when you think about it, Tenshin is like 24 years old. When RIZIN started, when he booked Tenshin for the first time, he was unknown.
Yeah.
Right. So he was getting a very mediocre money, actually lower than usual. And I think his father was signed actually a long-term contract. That's why, RIZIN had the time to make him a star. Right. So I really don't think this is actually a neutral promoter. So I think this rules is really for Tenshin.
Well, I feel like the biggest issue I have is compare this with like a boxing or like an MMA title fight. An MMA title fight, you get 5 rounds,
right?
Potentially, and in boxing, you get potentially 12 rounds now? I know they changed the rules,
but this is only 3 minutes,
3-minute rounds,
one extra round, right?
If it's one extension round, 3 3-minute rounds. This has the potential. I mean, not potential. There's a possibility that this becomes just a bore fest. Like, if they don't engage for 3 minutes, that's a tiny amount of fight time. 9 minutes.
It is. But I guess they were hoping maybe. I guess it's different. But when Tenshin for Horiguchi, right? It was entertaining enough because he was MMA fighter. That's something a little different. But this is a pure kickboxer, who's fighting in the kickboxing rules basically. So, yeah, I agree with you. It should have gone longer, like maybe even 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think, I don't know. I feel like expectations for Tenshin are so high that I feel like even though he won his last fight, people are like, he didn't win by enough.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people criticize that he didn't look good, and naturally, actually, it's like a guy who is at the 125 flyweight. It's fighting a guy who usually fights at 155. So I have a feeling they had to do it 3 rounds because you can't go longer than that, considering Takeru is cutting a massive amount of weight, and I think considering how Tenshin is going to boxing now, right? I mean, what if he gets knocked out on this fight? It doesn't look good. His boxing career is maybe even over. Who knows, right? So I think they're sort of. I'm not saying this is a real fight and stuff like that, but I think the best scenario is to go to the judge's decision and draw.
Well, for both parties, it'd be
yes.
I mean, I feel like Rise has a lot less to lose because Tenshin is leaving. I don't know if Rise is going to keep promoting him in boxing, but I know he's leaving for boxing. Whereas K1 still has an active interest in Takeru.
Exactly. And I think they're looking to match like Rise fighters versus K1 fighters, all the undercards, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, we'll see, because I see all these tweets from all these various kickboxers who is campaigning to try to get a fight in this show.
I'm pretty sure on the Rise card that just happened, almost every fighter afterwards was asking to be part of the card and everything. So you're going to get a lot of people asking to be a part of this event.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And my client, Ren Hiramoto, is having a beef with Mr. Rukia Ampo, and a lot of people think that fight's going to happen. We'll see,
That'd be a crazy fight. Yeah, some fans are already talking to me about that.
But I'm doing this for the record. As a manager for Ren, he's concentrating on MMA career. So if he's going to take a detour, the money has to be worth it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it makes zero sense. If it's money is worth it, then you can invest that money on his training and later. But other than that, it's just going to be a pure risk.
I thought that Panchan Reina was going to be part of it, but she just blew out her knee. I think she tore a ligament in her knee.
Exactly. So I'm telling you right now, I know they have to try to come up with some more interesting fights, right? Even though everybody buys this ticket based on this one fight, Takeru versus Tenshin, but I guess because of the Japanese combat sports standard, they have to come up with more cards and make it like a big show,
Well, someone actually made an interesting comparison that this might kind of, for kickboxing, this kind of has the potential to be like a Hickson versus Takada moment,
Mm-hmm.
where it could really launch a giant kickboxing boom in Japan if the card goes
Exactly.
well.
Right. But
So
remember,
Mhm.
that's a Pride 1 you're talking about, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
Right. Of course, it was, I think, the fact that everybody bought that tickets for that show because they wanted to watch Hickson versus Takada. No
Right.
one, like, nobody cares about it. Even the Kitao, which is a small fighter, fought in that show. And I think that's the one Takhtarov got knocked out by Gary Goodrich, right? Viciously got
I believe
knocked
so,
out.
yes.
Right. So, yeah, but again, on that show, they had to come up with some of the other fights too. So it's like the same concept.
Well, that's
And
what
I
I'm saying.
think,
What
yeah,
I'm saying is that because it has that potential, you can't only have the big stars. You got to have other people because
yes,
people are going to come watch Tenshin Takeru, but you need
right,
them to see the other people and get familiar with them
exactly,
so
right,
that you can make them into stars as well.
exactly. So which means since RIZIN and Rise is sort of close, right? Obviously,
Mhm.
you know. I mean, so I think problem here for the promoter is they say it's all going to be kickboxing bout. So they already put the limitations on themselves that you can't put
Yeah.
MMA fights, right? So unless if you find two very interesting kickboxers fighting each other's, it's going to be hard to come up with a very interesting fight, you know.
Right.
So they will
Because
be
it would
ended
have
up
been. Mhm.
calling some MMA fighter just to see if they would do any kind of kickboxing fight.
Yeah, because it would have been fun if they could put like a freak show fight in there, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like to get some entertainment value, or just an MMA fight. But I imagine what you'll see happening is some MMA fighters, like you said, doing kickboxing rules bouts. I
Exactly.
wouldn't
Right.
be surprised if like Kaito from shoot boxing comes over or
Mm.
something. I mean, Koji's been asking to be on it, but I don't know
Exactly.
if
That's the point. I was just going to say that
yeah,
they need way bigger names. So it has to be either
yeah,
Koji, right, or
mhm,
somebody big like a Shibata. I don't know if you do
right.
kickboxing. Yeah, something like that, or somebody big from like Kaya Sakura, perhaps, maybe, which I don't think that's going
Yeah.
to happen.
Well, I think Masato was saying that Kai should fight on it, but I think Kai is taking some time off.
Well, I think. Well, I think Kai said he's coming to America to train for like a month, right?
Well,
I
be
think he said
interesting.
something like that at some event in his hometown, and he's thinking about April. April is already here, so. But anyway, I know for the fact that I think after June, obviously, Rising is going to come back with the show in July, right?
Right, right.
Traditionally, that's just so, and I just have to assume that they would want a Sakura fight there.
Because that's true. But I'm thinking about the kickbox. Who's going to fight on it? You can't put a guy like Nadaka on it just because he doesn't have any name value. He's not going to bring any eyes to it. So Koji makes sense. Maybe like a Taiga, but all these guys potentially have bad relationships with K1. Does K1 want them on the card?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, my client Ren Hiramoto left K1 too, right?
Yeah.
So it was not a bad term, but he had to sit out like a little bit over a year to do it and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it's not in a good term, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, I mean, I really think they would have to call some popular MMA fighters. Let's say, for example, if the Horiguchi is in Japan, they would call him, you know?
Well, I think, I feel, I don't know if I'm 100%. I honestly think I heard that as part of Gomi taking the Tenshin fight on last minute notice was an agreement that he'd be on this card.
Yeah, I heard that too. So maybe Gomi's
Yeah.
fighting somebody. And you saw the photos of Mr. Sakakibara all pumped up, right? They
Yes.
released it on the tweet. So some people think that, oh, Gomi's going to fight, you know? But remember, we had that Dana White versus Tito Ortiz boxing fight. We had like it never took place, right?
Yeah,
So
never happened.
never happened. So, but anyway, so yes, I think so. As a management, you know, I have a couple of guys we could do kickboxing fight. Obviously, like Naoki, which I don't think you will think about it because I want him to do MMA fights. But we have a
Right.
couple other popular guys that who doesn't really mind doing kickboxing fights. I'm hoping to get a call. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just got to think from Rise. You got to think it's got to be someone like Taiju or Yaman or some of these guys.
Exactly.
That are
Yama makes
popular.
sense because also
Mhm.
I think that's like Benoit too. You know,
Right.
like a guy like who fought in also Rising makes sense because they are on national television.
Right.
Because
Right.
remember, interesting comment Takeru made after this press conference, and he said, "Finally, I get to fight on terrestrial broadcasting," which means
Right. He has
yeah,
never fought on Fuji
no,
TV before. That's correct.
exactly. He never fought on national television, and for people in America, this is still kind of hard to grasp, but still in Japan, majority of people only watches the regular television. It's like a CBS, NBC, Fox kind of thing, you know?
Right, right.
Right. But again, you know, America is totally different now. We all stream, you know?
And do you think they're going to try to bring some foreign fighters on the card to kind of up the
I wouldn't be
prestige value?
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised because K1 has their own connection to the, you know, outside. So is Rise and so is RIZIN. So I wouldn't be surprised if they even ask a guy like Musaev to do a kickboxing fight.
Right.
You know, that kind of stuff. They need to do something like that, I think, to make it event more interesting. Although everybody's buying ticket based on just one fight.
Interesting. Yeah, because
I mean, here's what it is. In comparison to that, I want to touch a little bit about this, which just took place a couple of nights ago, which was the same similar kind of big event, which is Triple G versus Murata.
Yes, yes.
Now, what do you think about that? I mean, what was
your huge?
It was a huge, right?
Well, this is kind of the interesting thing that I think people outside of Japan have a hard time understanding. Is that yes, the Japanese fans would have been happier if Murata won,
right?
But they're still really happy that he fought really hard and made a scrap out of it. Like the Japanese fans are very proud of Murata for his performance in the fight. They
That's
the point. Don't care that he lost.
I think most of the fans knew that he had a very, very slim chance to win this fight, right? And when you get the odds and stuff, he was like a plus 390. And
yeah, it was like
Triple G was like
Triple G.
minus 410, whatever, right? So it's obvious, but I think Japanese likes the challenger, you know? They like the guy who tries the best. It's not only about the results, it's about the process, and it's about, you know,
well, they love a guy, they love a fighter that goes out on their shield, that went out there and didn't hold anything back and really went for it.
And you know what? Here's what it is. But there's a couple of things I realized that in that show. Saitama Super Arena, everybody knows is a stadium version, you know, arena versions, a small arena version. And I was surprised they only have 15,000 people in there. It was the smallest version of a Saitama Super Arena. I thought it was bigger than that, you know?
Well, the event did get rescheduled because of Corona.
Exactly, for the Corona, right. And on top of that, in Japan, everybody who had the Amazon Prime was able to watch this for free. I mean, it's not technically free, but Amazon Prime, the membership, you know, which is not that expensive. And
I think a lot of people have Amazon Prime in Japan.
So. Oh, yeah, exactly, right. Yet, then I'm hearing a purse like a 15 for Triple G and 5 for Murata. So that must be coming from ticket sales and also sponsorship, right, for the show.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think about this? I mean, when I look at it, I was very impressed with Murata's performance, and it was a good show and stuff like that. But few people has pointed out that compared to MMA shows in Japan, the production value is very, very minimal. You know?
Well, yeah, because I mean, is it fair to say that of all of the martial arts, boxing is probably the highest revered or most respected in Japan?
Yes, it is. So they don't have to do all kinds of fireworks and all kinds of stuff.
Right. So I think they can kind of be lazy and rest on their laurels because they're at number one. They don't feel the need to do anything innovative.
Money on all kinds of stuff, right?
Right. They don't feel the need to make it innovative because they're already so highly respected.
Exactly. Right. So now, then I want to go back to talk about Tenshin Takeru, because I mentioned that is because one thing I'm very, very curious is that Mr. Sakakibara said that he's thinking about opening a purse of both Tenshin and Takeru. Now, compared to Triple G and Murata, you know, the tickets are much, much higher, right?
If they're going to reveal the purse willingly, that only means it's a big purse.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you wouldn't want to reveal a small purse. So it's all part of the marketing. If you want to make, because they're taking this marketing angle of talking about how this is the biggest fight, the tickets are so expensive, and if they're going to say that these guys are making a ton of money, that's all part of just trying to show how big of a deal this event is.
Exactly, and this one has a much higher ticket prices, and obviously they're getting Fuji Television, big money from Fuji Television, obviously, right?
It's on Fuji TV and Abima. Is that pay-per-view?
No, I think it's on Fuji Television.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have to be, right? But if they're giving up a pay-per-view share, it has to be a very, very good deal. right?
Right.
I mean, what's the point of giving up that portion of the income?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's the revenue they have secured from Fuji Television. I think I haven't talked to anyone yet about this how much Fuji is paying, but I'm pretty sure they're paying the highest ever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, in today's you don't give up pay-per-view, right? Or streaming
Right.
share. Right. So so I'm saying, so since Murata is 5 million, Triple G is 15, do you think they'll go more than 5? Now, according to most of the Japanese fans and media, I think in terms of Japanese fighters who made the most is Yoshida and Ogawa when they fought.
Right.
Right.
Well, that makes sense because they had to pry Yoshida away from judo.
Exactly. And I
to
think
do that, you have to make it
3
worthwhile.
for Yoshida, 2 for Ogawa, whatever that is. But it wasn't 5. So do you think 5 million is the line that they're going to shoot for? Since they
my
want to
issue
go
with this
up of
is
Murata?
I assumed in order to make the fight happen, a good portion of the money is going directly to Rise and to K1.
Of course.
So I wonder what money is left over for the fighters. So, but if they're going to announce it, it has to be at least 5.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, and that's what you're pointing to. If they're going to announce it, it's got to be huge. And if people are talking about Murata is making $5 million, whatever, you don't want to minimum. What's a big deal? But they're making $1 million each. Big deal, right? I mean,
the minimum has to be 5. They have to say they're at least on the same level as boxing.
Exactly.
But I would imagine they want to say more.
Right, we'll say probably more because now some people think about Conor McGregor level too, right? I mean, of course, it won't be that high, but this fight itself has the potential to be one of the biggest money making single day event.
When these rising cards wrap up this weekend, and this is the thing on the horizon, I expect there to be a giant marketing push towards it.
I think so too,
and I think it'll be all over everything, all over all of the news in Japan, and it'll get.
I can do it for the fact that RIZIN is not putting up any shows in June, because they'll be too busy with this.
Right.
And I think they're putting up one show in the beginning of May. So after that everything would be all about Tenshin takeru, which kind of makes sense.
The lottery too is kind of a genius way because it's also creating the idea of scarcity.
Well, exactly.
So even if they don't need the lottery, by having a lottery, you're putting it in the people's minds that so many people are going to be ordering tickets.
But
that we have to do a lottery.
Lottery is very common for a big name artist in Japan.
Right, because I know Baby Metal and bands like that do lotteries all the time.
You have to be a fan club member, then you got a right to apply for the lottery, and you still don't win it.
Well,
which means like Baby Metals or Southern All-Stars and all these guys will sell out the tour from the beginning to the end on the first day.
Who's your guy? Izawa, what's his name?
Yazawa too.
Doesn't he also do lotteries?
He only lottery. I applied for it too. I mean, he just announced the 2-day shows at the National Stadium. So you're talking about 100K on one day, 100K on next day on the same stage. There's 200K tickets available. I still have to try to win a lottery. Not sure if I can win it.
Is there a world where he sings Tenshin's entrance live?
Yazawa actually sang one song back in K1 before Yamamoto made a walkout. And I heard K1 paid $1 million for that one song because he's the highest paid artist or entertainer in Japan. And I think he sent a video message, right?
Yes.
Right, but I heard that this was not broadcasted on streaming or pay-per-view. None of that. They cut that part out or they made it blank. I heard something like that because Yazawa would not allow it. So it wasn't just not enough money.
Interesting. I was wondering if they're going to try to copy the old Conor McGregor, Chad Mendez entrance.
So exactly. So back to So lottery is brilliant because it gives you a feeling that, okay, this is really scarce. You can't really get a ticket. So I better take out like, $30,000 today.
Well, they're going to need it because the Tokyo Dome's huge. But as you said, the cheapest tickets are going to go so fast.
Yeah. And the mediocre tickets are going to go fast too. And of course, I got swamped with messages and phone calls that, our clients' sponsor wants to buy a ticket. So they all placed the ticket order through me 2 days before the lottery began, thinking I can secure those tickets. So I have to tell everybody, I don't know if I can do it this time.
I'm not a kickboxing manager.
Exactly.
I'm an MMA manager.
I mean, of course, I can talk to RIZIN, which I did, but it's not like they can confirm it immediately, So
Well, I
it's
think
really,
RIZIN's
really
kind of in a
popular tickets.
they're in kind of a weird position, aren't they? Because they're just kind of the middleman. I feel like Rise and K1 probably have more control over that.
Well, right, but it's like Akiba is a promoter. I mean, this is
Right.
where I think everybody now think he's a genius promoter now, right? To make this happen, because this
Well,
is considered to be almost impossible.
he's either a genius, lucky, or a mixture of both.
Both. I mean,
Because
of
I
course,
think
it comes in success always comes to luck too, right?
if Tenshin wasn't going to boxing, I don't think this would have happened.
That's true, and
I
it
think
could have.
Tenshin was able to effectively say, if you don't do it now, it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of showed that that's the case, and that kind of forced K1 to come on board.
Right, and I guess K1 has their fan base through Abema Television, and they have a very good, solid younger audience who is always buying their pay-per-views and making very solid revenues there. But they still probably felt that lack of national attention through national television, right? So,
well, Riot has been surging recently, but what I've heard is Riot has a couple stars on their roster, but I hear K1 actually has the deeper roster.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the bottom line: but nobody as big as Tenshin or takeru. Period.
Right, exactly.
It's a different caliber of popularity. So I think in a way, after Tenshin leaves Rise, it's not going to be the same. Like for example, Rise has this big sponsor called Cyber Games, right? That only came in cyber, and that only came from Tenshin.
Right.
So
what do you think happens? So I think actually Tenshin kind of needs this fight too, because I've noticed some criticism. People have been kind of critical of his past performances, and now they're looking back at his rising career and saying he didn't really fight that many tough guys. So do you think if this fight with Takeru kind of puts a cherry on top of his kickboxing career,
right,
if he wins, he goes out as like the best kickboxer?
Right, Takeru is heavier fighter, and on top of that, when Tenshin fought Rotang, it was a very controversial decision.
Yeah,
some people thought that he lost that fight, So yeah, it's true because he had the difficulty finding a right opponent to fight. He just didn't have many left in Japan.
Right.
Right, and yeah, sure. So but I'm just a little bit concerned because what if he gets knocked out? It's just a huge blow before going to boxing.
Yeah, but I think it's the manner of how it happens. If he goes out and fights really hard like Murata did, I think people will be willing to forgive it. If he gets like caught in the third round, but if he gets blasted in the first 10 seconds, yeah, that's a giant blow to his boxing career.
Again, I think Murata's case is a little different because he was challenging a real established champion. It's almost invincible. People thought it's almost
like the movie Rocky. Right? It's like a Rocky moment.
Right. The whole thing was Murata did way better than everybody thought.
Right.
But this one is all about who is better between RIZIN and K1.
That's true.
Fans are always thinking that manner. So
you better believe if Takeru knocks Tenshin out, K1 is going to use that video in every single one of their promotional videos.
Right. When you look at this long history of Japanese combat sports, including pro wrestling, when you top guy on the one promotion loses, it could go out of business. You'd be really surprised that he could. So,
Well, on the WMMA side, I just remember there was a time period where the big promotions refused to let their fighters fight each other. It was like Megumi Fuji wasn't allowed to fight like Yuka Tsuji or champions of other promotions because I think they all knew that if their champion lost, it could cause the promotion to go under.
Exactly, right. So, I mean, so this is actually a kind of risk to me, I think it's kind of big risk of Rise. Because K1 got a pretty good fan base, and I'm pretty sure they got good contract Abema. But I mean, of course, Rise too. But see what happens after this, right?
Yeah.
But
Tenshin is leaving though, so I think they're kind of already expecting a dip anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about this one. I want to talk about this one. Our favorite topic. This week's Rin Nakai.
Right.
But, this one. Okay. Let's talk about what happened here. I mean,
well, let's start by introducing Yokota for those that aren't familiar.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mr. Kazunori Yokota is the head of a team called K Clan, the gym, and he trains, many bunch of mediocre fighters, mainly fights for deep draws, right? So, and what happens? He on the RIZIN confession, was it the video that RIZIN shot? Yokota said
Yes.
something like he's always better than fighters like Rin Nakai or even Kanako Murata, which is a
Yes.
newly signed client of ours, that type of stuff.
Mhm.
So Rin started really go off on Twitter, right?
Right. So he kind of made a comment that was kind of vague.
Mm-hmm.
He made it sound like he said, if Rin Nakai was to come train with Izawa, I think Izawa would do really well.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is it now looks like Rin Nakai did go train there.
I think so.
And Rin Nakai is saying, I went there and I beat the shit out of Izawa.
But she basically said, I beat her on the ground and she didn't even push me. And even on the striking, on the standing, I felt I lost. I won everything,
Right.
Stop lying. This is libel. I demand to delete that,
Yeah, she kept saying defamation. But
defamation, right.
I can kind of see where Nakai is coming from because the comment that was more telling to me was her tweet that said, I went and trained at K-Clan. Everyone was really nice to me. I thought Yokota did a good job. I was going around telling people how nice of a gym it was. And now you release this video that's going to be watched by every MMA fan in Japan talking about how your fighter is better than me. So I think she feels kind of betrayed a little bit. And I've always had the idea that what happens in training really shouldn't be promoted. Like a coach shouldn't talk about, especially past fighters they've trained. The Murata comment seemed weird to me because if I was a fighter, I'd be hesitant to go train with there now because if you tap out, Yokota might talk about it in an interview or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Dean does say that here that I like Izawa, I like King Reina, I like about K-Clan, he was very good. So I tweeted a lot about, good positive thing about Yokota and blah blah blah. But is this the way you
yeah,
me kind of stuff, right? So
yeah, so she just got really upset. I mean, I think she sent like 14 consecutive really long tweets out in a row. But yeah, I mean, I think Yokota kind of has a history of putting his foot in his mouth. Because did you see the comments with Ishiwatari?
Yeah, he said that Yokota, he said hi to him, but the Yokota ignored. That's why he stopped saying hi to you, kind of stuff, right?
Well, Yokota said that Ishiwatari, the gym's not really good. Ishiwatari never says hi to me, and none of his fighters ever say hi to me. And then Ishiwatari said, I said hi to you a bunch of times, and you never responded. So I just stopped saying hi to you. So, yeah, I think Yokota just puts his foot. I remember I sent a video to one of my friends this morning because I was laughing because there's an old Dream press conference where Yokota is just like talking and ranting. And then Aoki just like tells him to shut up. Like he's not even fighting Aoki. And Aoki just like jumps into the press conference, like just picks up his mic and says, you stop talking, shut up. So I think he kind of has this reputation as talking a lot. Oh, what else did he do? He in the Ishiwatari video, Yokota said like, "Oh, I'm really smart. I graduated first in my class at college." And Ishiwatari's like comment was like, "Is there a way to even check that?" He was like, "How do we know if he graduated?"
Did Yokota went to some like a real prestigious college or something? I don't think so, right?
I think it was. It was actually. It's a kind of I forget what it was, but it wasn't like a Waseda or anything, but it was still like an upper ranked school. And he said he graduated.
If he was a valedictorian or whatever, like, I mean, it's easy to check.
Yeah, well,
he probably made a speech at the graduation ceremony, right?
But graduating first in your class doesn't really mean anything. Like, how many years ago was that? Exactly. Yeah, Yokota's been punched in the head a lot since then. But Yokota's also kind of an interesting situation because isn't he kind of in position to kind of take over Deep after Saeki retires?
Well, some people thought he was, but I don't think so. Not anymore.
Okay, because he's very close with Deep.
He is because Deep does send some of their fighters to there to train. But the same for like Ueda's gym, Fighters Flow, they do send some fighters there.
K-Clan has Sekai Izawa, they have King Reina, and they have Kate Lotus, all because Deep sent them there.
Right.
So a bunch of his fighters were just sent to him. So he's kind of in a good position.
Well, I can't really reveal so much, but in the beginning of the RIZIN era, Yokota's gym was pretty close, and he was taking care of some of the fighter who belongs to RIZIN on long term. So in return, RIZIN was actually paying him a monthly fee to train RIZIN fighters as well. So, but that stopped. I can't talk about the reason why. So, I'm not sure if he's that close. Because it's not like he has a good reputations of high respect from all these different fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because his gym. There's no doubt his gym has produced. Their fighters are doing very well right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have Ushiku and they have Seika. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, he's kind of creating beef with a bunch of people at the same time.
Right. So I mean, but here's one thing I have to say about this Rin Nakai too. Of course, it's Yokota sort of broke the code of coaches and not supposed to say that, blah blah blah. But let's say, what if he wasn't a coach, and what if Izawa or some fighter say that? Then that's just a regular like a hype up for the fight, right?
I agree with you in a sense that what he said, the way that I interpreted it at first was, he's just saying if Seika Izawa and him and Rin Nakai trained, he thinks that Seika would do well. It's because of Rin Nakai's comments that we know that they actually did train together. And so I think Rin Nakai made it, she brought a bunch of attention to it. A comment that nobody would be talking about. Rin Nakai has now made the biggest, most infamous part of that entire RIZIN confession.
Right, but here's what it is though. When you train, as everybody know, unless if you do 5 minutes, 3 round, a real sparring, like when you do regular light sparring or just doing a grappling training, or like you can't really determine who won. You know what I mean? No. Unless if you tap other fighter out or something like that.
Well, even then, because in training, a fighter might be trying something.
Exactly, that's my point. Another thing I want to say is this, because Rin Nakai said in this, I've never lost to anybody in any training for years, kind of stuff. But I know a lot of fighters who likes to do something that they need to work on some weak department of their game. So in training, they actually don't look good. I know a lot of guys, they're purposely doing something to try to improve their weak part of the game. So, they lose on the sparring sometimes, because of it.
You got to think of like when someone's getting ready to fight a specialist, like when Aaron Belcher was preparing to fight Paul Harris, or when Liz Carmouche was preparing to fight Ronda Rousey. They must have tapped hundreds of times,
right?
In training, and that doesn't mean anything. That just means that they're trying to get better at a current situation.
Exactly, right. And also I know a lot of fighters who purposely doesn't really put 100% because sometimes you got to face that guy in the future.
Right.
Two famous ones in U.S. and America. I have to say this: Matt Lindland and Mr. Yoshiyuki Yoshida. Everybody who trained with those two fighters, they say it's like, he's not that tough. I can't believe he's that. I can't believe he's winning in octagon. But when they're in the fight, they're so much tougher than they've ever seen. So a lot of fighters are like that. So
especially if you're in Rin Nakai's position. If you're going to go visit a gym, I don't think I'd be showing 100%.
No, exactly. Why would they? I mean, why would she too? In a way. So again, is this like making a big noise in Japanese fans? You're getting pretty good.
Well, I think Japanese fans are laughing about it just because
Rin
Nakai sent out 14 tweets in a row that are all very long.
Right, and this
apparently
is
she knows how to use hashtags now.
I hate to just say this, but this is a problem about Japanese. It's so rare to sue people, right there, because hiring lawyers is a big fucking
expensive.
Deal. I'm sorry, my French, but it is expensive. But they always mention about possibility of lawsuits immediately, right? Defamations. I'm demanding to delete, report, whatever. I mean, why is that? Why do you have to make it so big deal? Why do you have to be so sensitive?
It might be the same thing as when I was in the U.S. Back when I was in the U.S., but I come from a legal background, and everybody that says I want to sue, I'm going to sue you, those people never end up suing.
Never. If you really want to sue, you're going to send that letter fast before you even say that.
If you say you're going to sue someone, what those people do is then they contact a lawyer, and then they realize that odds are their case isn't very good, and that the lawyer wants to be paid hourly. And then they're just
not only the retainer first too.
Yeah, because unless you have a good case, they're not going to take it on like a contingency fee.
No.
So then the
because,
lawyer's like, all right, well, I cost $1,000 an hour and I want 10,000 up front. They're just going to be like, oh, never mind.
I think for any defamations or libel suits, the cheapest I found was 5,000 retainer and 300 per hour. But even that lawyer warned me that it takes lots of hours of researches and getting all the documents and proofs together to prove the defamation case. So that's hours of legal fee, you know?
It's kind of extreme example, but back when Adam Carolla was doing the whole podcast lawsuit with the patent trolls, and I think it cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they didn't even go to the courtroom yet.
Exactly. So there's no case here. I mean, there is maybe case, but there's not much they could do. You know?
I mean, what happened to the guy that said all this stuff to Hana Kimura? He had to pay like a $50 fine or something.
Exactly.
And that led to someone dying. So, I mean, I feel like in this situation, even if you go through it, the penalty is not going to be worth it.
You know, it's really hard though in terms of suicide. I mean, it's you got to prove manslaughter or something, right? Because it's not an assisted suicide, and in Japan that's all illegal everywhere. You know, if you're assisting suicide, but it's hard to prove when you're miles away.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm just saying an example of like slander and all those things. In that case, it's much more clear cut than this case.
It's not direct too. It's not like they go kill yourself and stuff like that, right? It's different.
Yeah, and Yokota didn't even say anything that crazy. He just said, I think that if they grappled, Izawa would do well. And that's pretty much, it was like a one-off line.
Right.
And nobody would be talking about.
Another way to look at it is maybe he's trying to set up a big super fight for the future.
That's a good idea. I know that it's quite interesting. I know that apparently Nakai does have management now.
Yeah, I know. Actually, it's the same management who used to manage Horiguchi.
Yeah, it's the same one of those Kana Asakura
baseball players. Yes,
which is kind of interesting. So we'll get to see what happens.
But well, you know, we can talk about this. So I mean, UFC sort of somebody leaked a story about they're doing an Asia tournament starting at the Singapore show, and I think it's going from June 11th to all the way to like September kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw somebody leaked that there's going to be a couple like little mini tournaments or something.
It's going to be an eight people tournament, and I think it's flyweight to lightweight only. They were thinking about the welterweight, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not sure. You know, I mean, I can tell you this right now. We all knew about it for like a month and a half already. You know, people try to get something going. You know. But right now, I can tell you to all the Japanese fans that, again, I think I told you about this, that many top guys are under the contract, so they can't really do, you know, or a lot of guys who left the one championship or RIZIN still on like matching period or negotiation period, so which makes it very difficult, you know.
Right.
So, but the reason why I mentioned that is because the Nakai is too old for this Asia tournament. Because they're looking for a fighter who's around 10 fights, and they're obviously a little bit younger than 34.
Yeah, but if I was there and I wanted it in the UFC, wouldn't your strategy just be to be a last-minute replacement for something in Asia?
That could happen, right, for her, because 125, she could even make 115, or she could fight 135. So she got all three weight classes covered, right?
Yeah,
so, yes.
That's how Mizuki got in. Mizuki fought her fight at 125, didn't she?
Right, exactly.
She fought the giant girl in China that came in overweight
but she won.
Class.
And she went down to 115 and fought a very tough Brazilian girl, Lemos.
Yes.
Right? So it's
knocking everybody out.
Yeah. Which I think she can come back on September, you know. But anyway, I'm going back to this thing because the reason why I said that is because I have a feeling Nakai, it's still very difficult for her to go to UFC even though she wins this tournament. So then maybe she'll stick around RIZIN. So in RIZIN, anything could happen. So if the Izawa beats Hamasaki, and if there's nobody else for her to fight, and Izawa could fight at 115, and Nakai has said that she could come down to 115. So that could be the fight to make.
That'd be a crazy big fight, yeah.
Exactly.
I'd love it.
The way I look at it is maybe this feud is good for the Japanese MMA. Who knows?
It is.
Yeah. And
also,
but
is Rin Nakai a genius in a sense that if I tweet about this, it becomes big news and people start talking about my name?
Right. So, I mean, in that sense, I mean, some people may be making fun of him, and I think a lot of people are assuming that this is not Rin writing herself, and it's probably her coach husband Osami, which is fine, right, at this point, because that's their character, you know.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So I think there's something will happen from this feud, you know.
Well, especially if Rin wins the Deep Jewels tournament, she'll be
Right,
high
and
item.
especially if Mizawa beats Hamasaki again too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both big ifs.
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about that RIZIN Tokyo 2 days. That's what they call it.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that's what they call it. They want us to hashtag this way. Yeah.
The RIZIN trigger card, in my opinion, is better than the numbered Osaka card. What do you think?
I agree. And they got the main event is Yachi, as you know, called it. And our client Kuramoto is the co-main.
Right.
Yeah.
And both of those fights are great.
Too, right.
I mean, Kintaro is super popular. That's going to be a great fight for Kuramoto.
Exactly. And Taka Kenshin is like a national news almost, right? Because former sumo wrestler.
Right. There's going to be a lot of confusion because people. Because I mean, I think him and Sidario have to be identical twins. They look almost exactly the same.
I know. They can do real life super strong machine. I don't know if you know that, but you know, like Then they have the hardcore's favorite maybe matchmake, which is like Kanehara versus another client of ours, Mr. Majima.
Yeah, I remember last show someone actually asked when Majima was fighting again, so it's good to see him back in action.
Right. And I'm telling you right now, over and over, he only lost to Saito and Clever. Okay? Yeah, and he dominated the first round against Saito. So I'm really hoping to see a good result for him this one. Yep. You know, he could be the dark horse of a featherweight divisions in RIZIN this year. Who knows?
I have a question for you. So Trigger was first described as, oh, this is where like some older fighters can fight.
Older fighters to resurrect, right? The place for.
But I'm looking at this. I'm like, all these guys are like solid contenders now. I feel like Trigger's kind of lost its way. Well, I mean, it's good. This card's way better than any Trigger card before, I think, almost.
I think in the beginning they started as a place for older fighters or place for younger fighters to resurrect or get a second chance kind of stuff. But I think the show is doing better than they expected.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling they might even go shift towards number series is the ring and Trigger is the cage. And they might even be cage champion and the ring champion. Who knows? Japanese likes that.
I mean, because in my mind, on a Trigger show, looking at this, I feel like Kuramoto Kintaro could be the main event of an Osaka Trigger show.
Kuramoto and Kintaro could be main event of a Landmark if you play it right.
And then Shuto Watanabe could be the co-main. But then you look at this. I mean, you have Kuramoto as the co-main, and you have Yachi in his rematch with Gustavo as the main. This is practically a numbered event. This is a great card.
Exactly. And compared to that, actually, I must say, number series is a little bit weak, right?
Well, especially the Osaka card that just happened.
Oh, Osaka card was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But what about coming up with RIZIN 35? It's not that bad.
Oh, I think RIZIN 35 is looking pretty good, actually. I love the way they market things in Japan. And I love that RIZIN 35's poster is highlighting the fact that all of these are rematches. The Souza, Ushiku, Hamasaki are all rematches where the champion lost.
Right, exactly.
Or not the champion lost, but there was like a controversy. So I love that marketing. It's like the whole revenge angle. It's great.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And especially Souza against Johnny Case. I mean, I'm not taking anything out of Case, but it was sort of like an accident too.
Well, that fight ruined my perception of Souza for so long because I thought that he went down on a jab. This guy's no good, and then he won every fight since then. So
he's pretty good. We'll see, but
Johnny Case. What do you think? Johnny Case had the legal trouble.
What did he do? I forgot about it. He did get into trouble.
Well, there was like domestic violence allegations. I don't think anything came of it.
So
and then because was he part of PFL and then PFL dropped his contract when that came out?
So. Right. He did sign with PFL, yes.
So then he had like 3 really weird boxing matches.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm wondering, what is Johnny Case going to be like when he shows up? Like, who is Is this Johnny
Well,
Cage
who
that
knows? He
fought
may,
Souza the
he
first
probably
time?
sharpening his striking skills, and when anybody who fights against Souza, I guess he would try to avoid the ground game, right?
That'd be smart. Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and let's mention Mr. TK Kosaka still fighting.
right. That's kind of a crazy fight.
He's like what, 56?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a crazy fight.
I tweet about this, but last night I watched the last episode of Super Pumped, which is a story about the Uber founder and Travis Kalanick. Everybody goes, "Hey TK, hey TK." I'm like, wow, I'm thinking about Kosaka, for me. But anyway,
then you got what? You have Kana Asakura on the undercard, which is kind of crazy.
And also,
too.
you gotta look at this Koji Takeda fight against the Carlisle. This is a very interesting signing too.
I think Carlisle campaigned for a while to fight in RIZIN, didn't he? I think this is something he actively wanted.
And he's a very interesting fighter,
Yeah.
So, and also, I got to give hats off to RIZIN for putting Motoya against Yamaniha too.
I predicted that. I am proud to say that the fight that I wanted for Yamaniha after his win with Motoya.
You said that, right.
And I think it's perfect because Yamaniha in his last fight was the best Yamaniha we've ever seen.
Yes.
And a win over Motoya really elevates him to that next level.
Right. But let's see how Motoya will look like, right, on this fight.
Very true. Yes.
Yeah.
He's coming off that kind of embarrassing loss. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Right. And also, you look at this first two fights, too. It's not that bad. Kai Agon against Ashida. And, personally, Nakajima against Keramov is a very good fight,
Well, Nakajima has had like a crazy resurgence in his career. He's got
right.
A
lot of people don't remember he used to fight in ACB and stuff,
Yeah.
Right.
So
I remember him, and we were in the same show once,
Yeah, but see, this is what I'm talking about. It's like Nakajima is like the perfect candidate for the idea of a trigger card of this like veteran that's like resurging. But put him on the number card. He's fun to watch, and Vugar will be good to be back. I wonder if people remember. I feel like fans were upset with all of the eye poking and stuff in his last fight.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see what happens. And Kyle, I mean, outside of the Clubber Koike fight, was looking pretty good too. So he's in the opening fight. That's crazy.
Exactly. But when you really look at in these 2 days, they are putting up pretty solid featherweight fights. So obviously they're looking to do something. And I'm hearing they're putting actually flyweights fight too. So they might do flyweight Grand Prix, right? This year. So.
Right. And I'm wondering if the Kana Asakura set up. There were rumors that Sakakibara was interested in the women's super atomweight tournament.
Could be.
And Sarami is the Shuto super atomweight champion. So it'd be interesting. Maybe the winner of this gets part of that tournament if it happens.
And that could be the last road for Reina too.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And regardless of what happens to Hamasaki and Izawa, they could be on it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a couple other ones they could think about that. So that's going to be interesting. They can bring in fighters from outside Japan too now. So.
Right. Oh, so that's completely changed the game too. The ability to bring in foreign fighters. Already in these two cards, some huge fights were made with foreign fighters. So you can already see that having foreign fighters in has drastically elevated the quality of the cards.
Right.
Because the main event on the Trigger show, I mean, that's a giant fight. It's a rematch. People are interested in that. Plus, since Yachi's on this whole like redemption tour, if he beats Gustav, it puts him right back on track towards his previous storyline.
Right, but if he loses again, he's on the edge. He's back to the ropes now.
He's been riding the edge for a while.
Yeah, I
was at Costco the other day, and I saw a picture. His girlfriend was on the poster for something. So, at least his girlfriend's doing well.
For those out there who doesn't know how popular or famous his girlfriend, his girlfriend is like a national level actress.
Yeah, she's way more famous than he is.
I mean, she's like one of the very well known, right?
Right.
But anyway, so I mean, I think the fact that Yachi also, not because he's the boyfriend of Haruna Kawaguchi, I think the fact that he beat Gomi, from Japanese fans' point of view, that stays for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's
and that was a fun fight. That was a fun fight.
It was a fun fight. So
Hamasaki is training with Megumi Fuji. They showed that in the Raikon. Megumi Fuji came up from Hiroshima to train with her. So I'm expecting a really motivated Ayaka Hamasaki. So I'm really interested to see how that fight goes as well.
Well, first of all, I don't think Hamasaki is going to grapple against Izawa. She's gonna have
that's
to
why
utilize her striking skill and the speed. She's gonna have to fight like Horiguchi almost.
going into the first fight, I always told people and said Hamasaki should strike with her. Why would you go into your opponent's strong point willingly?
You know, I think she was too overconfident with her arm lock ability. She likes to give back her back, but lock that arm lock. It's just like Sakuraba used to do. That's her like favorite move, and she thought she could do that, but that's the move that Izawa smashed it. You know,
right?
So
and up kicks. I think the up kicks played a giant factor in the first fight. I think she never recovered from the up kicks. So it could be completely different.
This one is going to be different. I think, you know.
Well, it could be the same or it could be completely different. It just because Seiki Izawa has also improved drastically between each fight.
Exactly, that's the point.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see what happens.
Right, yeah. I mean, this is going to be a very good fight. And one thing about it is if Izawa wins this one, she's going to be a star of RIZIN for a while. So it's going to be a while till we see her in the States, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Which is, in a way, kind of disappointing, but I guess it's good for her because she'll be making good money there, you know?
Yeah. What do you think about the Ushiku Saito fight?
Who? Ushiku and Saito?
Yeah.
You know, I will say that on the record, they both are not really a top featherweights in Japan. I think.
So there's this whole thing in Japan right now where I think most people, there's like this argument. Did Ushiko get lucky, or was it like a planned attack?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say he got lucky because Saito changed his stance. He kind of came a little bit too leaning forward on the second round, thinking he could do it. But so that's part of the game, you know. But I think they're very close, to tell the truth. So I don't think it was a big upset for me the last time. I wouldn't be surprised if Ushiku wins again. But I'll tell you this on the record, I don't think Ushiku will be close to beating a guy like Clever.
No. I don't think it was a lucky shot either. I think it was kind of the same thing as the Horiguchi Pettis situation where Pettis had blatantly trained that kick. And if that situation rose, he was going to do it.
Right.
And I think Ushiku had trained that flying knee.
Right.
But yeah, because I mean, I don't think RIZIN is this a fight where RIZIN's kind of showing their cards that they want Saito to win, and that's why they're making the rematch happen?
I think so.
Because Ushiko's last fight wasn't even in he was the RIZIN champion, and he fought in deep.
Right.
So I think that the whole division is chaos, and Sakakibara is trying to correct it and make it act like the first fight never happened.
Exactly. But so if whoever wins this fight, I think Clever Koike has to fight the winner, right?
Oh, yeah.
So more than likely that Clever will take the belt.
Well, it's a weird situation where, rightfully so, many people think that Clever Koike is essentially the champion of this division.
He is.
Yeah.
I mean, face it, he is. I mean, he beat Mikuru, he beat Majima.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, who else is there? I mean, I hate to say it, but Kyohei is not really up there yet, you know, Hagiwara. So, exactly. So the point is, that's why Keramov or Agwon or a couple other featherweights from outside Japan could just change the whole picture of the featherweight in RIZIN.
Yeah.
It's not like top guys are real solid, like real top, you know. I don't want to say that, but you know, I don't think Ushiku and Saito has that kind of ability, right? So, I mean, if it wasn't for DQ, I think Keramov beat Saito.
I would, you
know?
I agree.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean,
I would also like to add my random comment before I forget. So, Kana Asakura is the subject of the most recent RIZIN preparation video. And Japanese fans have noticed that everyone that has had a preparation video made about them has lost. And so they're calling it the preparation curse.
I know when Naoki got on it, they say that too, but Naoki won the fight, so
it
should be fine.
But so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens just from the comedic aspect of the preparation curse, kind of like the Eminem curse or the UFC game curse.
Yeah, we'll see, you know. But yeah, I mean, anyway, so this is going to be a pretty exciting week because it's 2 days in a row, which is, you know, very rare.
It's at a new venue, right? It's not at.
It's a new venue too. Shoshi Arena or something like that, right? It's a little bit. It's in Tokyo, but it's a little bit outside it. You know, are you going?
It's gonna be fun. I'm going. Yes, I'm going.
Which one? Trigger.
I'm going to the numbered show.
Numbered show. Okay, yeah, okay, makes sense. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch the Trigger show on pay-per-view and then go to the numbered show. Because unfortunately, you pretty much have to buy the tickets only when like 3 fights are announced. So if I'd seen how good the Trigger show is, maybe I would have switched.
Yeah, well, that that might make sense too. But anyway, that's very good. I'm very excited about the Japanese combat sports scene now.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
bringing in like another fighters from outside.
What's shaping to be a crazy year.
Right. Oh, since somebody comment mentioned, I forgot that Tatsuro Taira is making a UFC debut in this month too. So
Yeah.
we'll see how he does.
Mm-hmm.
And I always hope every Japanese fighters to win. In UFC.
Let Okinawa represent.
Right. I mean, the point is, I didn't do the stats, but the Japanese fighter must have the worst record in UFC by now.
Well, I was trying to explain to my wife that I feel like that may just be because the UFC signed so many Japanese fighters that were blatantly past their prime.
I know. But Taira is young. He's there at the right time.
Murata's young.
Yeah.
I expect
Murata is Murata has signed with us, from April 1st. And I think she'll make a comeback in September too, because she has a little bit of injuries.
I still expect great things from Mizuki. So
yeah, we'll see. And I hope Taira wins. And hopefully I'll get a Sato second fight soon,
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to put a couple guys into the Asia tournament. I'm hoping. So we can see a little bit more Japanese fighters on the, octagon. Somebody commented that Carlos Candelario is tough. I agree. He's actually pretty tough, and he's actually a pretty good striker too. So I think we'll see how Taira's real striking and wrestling ability is.
In these, I guess I'll close with this. In these 2 days of Tokyo, which fight do you think has the potential to be like the most impactful or most important?
Well, I mean, come on, I'm biased. You know what I mean? And
let the bias show.
If Kuramoto suplex Kintaro and wins it, I think Kuramoto's popularity will get to the next level. Right. And also between hardcore fans, I think a fight between Kanehara and Majima, the winner is going to be considered as one of the contenders on the featherweight division. Along with Kleber, Mikuru, Horie.
I agree with you on Kuramoto. If Kuramoto wins, because he's had such a great year already, because he's coming right off of that last show, which was only like a month ago or a month and a half ago. So Kuramoto is really soaring right now. Also,
he's soaring.
Izawa, if she wins, completely changes the landscape.
Exactly. Another fight I was going to say is Izawa Hamasaki. Come on. I mean, I've managed Hamasaki for so long that I'm so sentimental about it. But Izawa is a great talent, and I'm always excited about to see new female talent coming out of Japan, which is it's not that often. So yeah, I mean they're really good fights. Now
I'm looking at it, it's kind of a hard question because I'm like, but if Souza beats Case, that erases his only defeat and really puts him on the world stage.
Yeah, we'll see.
Good problem to have.
But again, I'm a little bit biased, but the Ayaka's weight is 105. So this is a little bit heavy, 110. I think Izawa can build up to 115, pretty easily. So I think there's a little physical disadvantage for Hamasaki there.
Well, I think Hamasaki my thing about Hamasaki is recently, I think she's been fighting not smart. She's been fighting in a way to be entertaining. She wanted to knock out Kana Asakura. That's why that fight ended up being so close.
Right. She just kind of went out and kind of gassed out, right? She
wanted to have an exciting brawl with Emi Fujino.
Right. So I hope Megumi Fuji will give her a good game plan, Although the Megumi is known as a super grappler and stuff like that, but of course they got to do a couple of things about the grappling. But I think the game she has to play is a striking,
Yeah, that's how she can win. I mean,
right. And Hamasaki is a far better striker still at this point,
Because I've always thought Hamasaki is a very good grappler, but I've always, even today, we've never seen it. I've always been interested to see how she looks off her back. It's such a rare position for her.
Yes.
I'm kind of interested, but in the first fight, I do remember Izawa, I think, even pulled guard at one point. Izawa was like, get it to the ground now, get it to the ground now, get it to the ground now.
Right. She was only thinking about ground, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Hamasaki can stop that. And Hamasaki has KO power in her left hand.
She does. I mean, look at what she did to Zhang Yufrei and the other, fighters. And remember, I think if I were her, I mean, I don't talk to her now, but if I were a coach, I talk to coach a lot. She should really utilize the RIZIN rules. There's a stumps and soccer kick available. I really think so.
Well, that was
If
one
she
thing
pulls
that
the
I
guard,
thought.
I'll stomp her face, kind of stuff, you know.
That was one thing that was super impressive to me is that sometimes fighters come into RIZIN and they don't use those rules. I remember
You know what's so
talking to
funny?
Aika years ago when she was fighting Invicta. I'm like, have you been
Many
training
fighters
elbows?
told me this, that yeah, sure, when you sign with RIZIN, they do practice soccer kick, they do practice stomp, but they say they get hesitant of doing that at the fight because it could get very dangerous.
See, I don't want to see if I was them, I wouldn't be training those. I think the real stuff to be exploiting is like Saudi Oshima and Seiki Izawa really showed that those up kicks from guard are devastating.
Right, but
and
again,
I would also be working on knees to a grounded opponent's head.
Exactly,
things like that are more practical.
It's more practical, right? But up kicks, as long as you're on the ground position, they can't up kick you anyway. So we have to just put your one knee down. So that's not a hard. But again, Hamasaki doesn't want to be in that position. If she pulls guard, he's a stomp or just kick the legs like what Sakuraba did to Gracie's in the old days, you know?
Right.
Right, because just to impress the judges too, because she's got to pay for the judges' scorecard, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not her coach, so but I hope she would do much better than what she did on the first fight because she didn't get to show what she had, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so
before we close out, I'd like to plug two things.
Sure.
Deep Jewels released a backstage video. They've been releasing these backstage videos showing behind the scenes and of their events. I recommend that video. And Pancrase also did it. Pancrase did a backstage for Pancrase 326. And there's like a 20-minute, maybe not 20 minutes, but there's like a pretty long video about the Karen Emi Fujino fight. And that was a fascinating watch. I enjoyed that one a lot as well. Really? So I recommend both of those to the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I got to see that. I haven't watched it yet. So that's good. So it's on YouTube, right?
Yes, both on YouTube.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we talk again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
We have all the results from the RIZIN Tokyo 2 days. So,
you know. Ton of results to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, and Horiguchi fight too in Bellator, which I forgot to mention. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We didn't even bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But we'll talk about it in our next episode.
Perfect.
Okay, great. And then have a nice day.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.